Thanks, everyone. So we are going to resume now with the session that actually we skipped over yesterday as the Dr. Gam and Rizzo session ran a little long, which was great. We were happy to do that. But at this point, we would like to invite a few of our international representatives to provide an update about what has been going on in their parts of the respective world. So um, actually, if our microphone runners could deliver the microphones, and rather than have everyone come up, perhaps it might be easier if there's a stand as I call your name, and you could provide your report from your seat. So first, we can go with Michael Langsfeld, and we'll bring the microphone over to you. And then Michael's from Germany and can provide an update on ProRetina.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this fantastic conference. My name is Michael Langsfeld. I'm 59 years old, live in Germany, married since 25 years, and have a daughter of 21. In my professional life, I was head of a department of an investment bank for more than over 30 years. And I was responsible with my team for planning of the short-term liquidity of the bank. CHM has not prevented my professional success, but it has slowed it down in the recent years. Now I work for the board of the CRF and I'm responsible for CHM at ProRetina Germany and for their cooperation with European organizations such as the European Reference Network I, for Arodis and EPF. First, I want to introduce my German organization, ProRetina Germany. ProRetina Germany is a self-help organization of people with retina degeneration. It was founded in 1977 by people affected with RP with the intention of helping themselves to cope with problems caused by visual impairment and promotion medical research and exchanging experience. The main goals of our organization are promotion of research into retinal degeneration with the aim of finding a therapy. Information, advice, and practical help for those affected and their relatives. Educating the public about the consequences of retina degeneration and influencing state and private institutions to support the interests of those affected and research. ProRetina is also organizing every 2 years a European conference for CHM in Germany. That is an international conference. We have some interpreters there which are translating the talks into English, and when the talk is in English, they translate it back into German. This year we should have a conference, but I didn't plan it for this year because of COVID, and so I switched it over to next year for September. If you want to come, please let me know. You're all invited. ProRetina has also their own foundation, which has the goal to support the retina research and to find a therapy for all of these diseases. Now I want to introduce you with the European Network for Eye. What is the European Eye? The European Eye is a European reference network dedicated to rare eye diseases. European ERA and Eye covers 20 out of 27 European countries with 52 full members and 8 affiliated partners across Europe. It is also supported by the European Union to guarantee the best cover of more than 900 rare diseases. The coordinator is from the University of Strasbourg. What about rare eye diseases? Rare eye diseases, called also RED, are the leading cause of visual impairment and blindness of children and young adults in Europe. There are more than 900 REDs known in Europe. From the most prevalent disease, such as retina pigmentosa, to some very rare entities described only once or twice in the medical literature. The next organization. Oh no! I want to say something for Europe, for ENI. ENI is they are working together more than 50 hospitals and their researchers in Europe. That means they come together for changing their experience and knowledge, what they are doing, and I think it's a very good platform for exchange of knowledge. The next organization where we are working with is Aurodes. The European Organization for Rare Disease, Aurodes, is a non-government, patient-driven alliance of patient organizations and individuals across in the field of rare disease that promote research of rare diseases and commercial development of orphan drugs. Aurodes is dedicated to improving the quality of life of all people living with rare diseases in Europe. It was founded it was founded for foundations and with the health industry. There are estimated 20 to 30 million people living with rare diseases in Europe and an estimate of 6,000 rare diseases. Aurodes is representing more than 960 rare disease organizations in 63 different countries, of which 26 are from the European Union, cover more than 2,000 rare diseases. Aurodes is a development of the patient self-advocacy movement. Aurodes was the founding partner of the Rare Disease Day in 2008 and remaining his lead. I think Aurodes is similar to the National Organization for Rare Disease here in North America, which is called NORTH. We are also working with the European Patient Forum. The European Patient Forum is a non-profit organization based in Brussels, Belgium. EPS is an umbrella organization of pan-European patients organizations, active in the field of European public health and create a patient-centered access for healthcare for citizens through whole Europe. This was a small overview of what we are doing in our field in Germany. For any questions, you can drop me an email. My contacts are in the app. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michael. We're fortunate to have so many visitors from across the pond here. Another one is Paul van Rensselaer, who is representing Zizos from the Netherlands. And Paul is on your left side of the stage.
Thank you so much. So before I start, I would like to say I've been asked the day before yesterday to say something here. So unfortunately, I couldn't make a super fancy PowerPoint slide deck for you guys. So bear with me that I'm doing this from the top of my mind and the mobile phone. Let me introduce Zizos. Translated to English, it would mean something like "see carefree." And the foundation was raised by my lovely mom sitting next to me here around 14 years ago, somewhere in 2000, even more than 2007, 2008, where she was requested in a international meeting in The Hague, where a lot of American researchers were there, that money needed to be raised for Miguel Seabra, for the mouse model, which we have seen in the last couple of days. And my mom, all by herself, had to raise at that time 1,000 euro in order to get him funded and in order for him to continue. And I think she did it in a year or something, all by herself. Well, we know what happened then. Miguel developed the mouse model, and after that, Robert McLaren could start with his clinical trial. And my mom thought, well, I have the hang of it, of raising money, so let's start a foundation called Zizos. And we organized a big, I think that's where we became sort of famous, a big tandem tour with 20 visually impaired people and visually capable people. How do you say that in English? Well, let's say not visually impaired people on the front of the tandem, obviously. Cycling all the way to London to the Paralympics, where we raised another 50k for Robert McLaren to start his trials. And why am I all telling this? Because this is sort of the introduction how I, myself, together with my mom, got a very personal relationship with Robert McLaren. He became my actual eye doctor, and the foundation continued raising money and getting awareness in the Netherlands and funding Robert McLaren specifically for the last, 12, 13 years. And I actually had a meeting with Robert McLaren 1.5 months ago with a lot of details about clinical trial phase 3 and his cooperation with Biogen and a lot of other stuff. And I want to share a couple of things about that with you. And as you might hear in my voice, I'm a bit nervous about it because I have a very personal relationship with him, and he shared quite a lot of things which are or not published yet or confidential. And I know that when I'm starting to share this here, it might come out and he might get contacted about this. But you guys are my family, so I will share it anyway. But I want to give it as a disclaimer to you that, first of all, the most important part, I think, is that parts of it are confidential. Secondly, I hope you can appreciate it's my interpretation of what he told me. So not everything is fact, so I will just say constantly my interpretation. But with this out of the way, I would say let's start. So I had a meeting with him together with most of his team, and we spoke about obviously what the hell happened last year, why Biogen killed the clinical trial. So I asked him, can you at least tell me where we ended with the trial? Well, and what was, I think, a surprise for all of us is that what he calls the endpoints, the 3 endpoints. And there is apparently a primary endpoint called the 3 lines improvement of sight, and the secondary endpoints, which are the 2 lines of sight which needed to be increased and the stabilization of eyesight. And I obviously asked him, why is stabilization of eyesight the secondary endpoint and not the primary endpoint? And he had a whole political answer to me why it was shifted to a secondary endpoint. And his bottom line was that actually all the results were very positive, except that the primary endpoint was just not met. But the secondary endpoints were. So he told me that he actually had a lot of discussion with Biogen and telling them, hey, all the results point in the right direction, especially the secondary endpoints, but we just missed the primary endpoint. So can't we just continue and see how we can move forward with the trial? Well, we know the results. Biogen declined and they don't want to continue. But he told me a lot of things which gave me more insight in the whole situation, how he cooperated with Biogen. So he told me that when Nightstar handed over the whole thing to Biogen, Biogen gave him a primary point of contact, which was the guy or girl, I don't know, communicating with the FDA. And this person was not even an ophthalmologist. He didn't even have a lot of knowledge about how I interpret this, about eyesight. And he told me he actually had Zoom calls with this person explaining him what eye deterioration actually is. And this was the guy talking to the FDA trying to get approval for us. So I felt a bit this frustration in that he needed to educate this person who was the intermediary towards the FDA. He also told me that Biogen was struggling a lot, especially during COVID, with producing the vector. And getting the distribution network up and running. So getting all the vectors across the world and being able to provide the vector everywhere in the world. And that they actually, were struggling with that. And based on this, he told me, in order to get approval from the FDA, it's not only the trial success, it's also to show that you can mass produce the vector and distribute it across the world, which Biogen at that point was not really capable of. So he said it's not only the trial to get approval, it's also those other 2 points which, well, Biogen didn't feel that comfortable going forward with. So with that, he had a discussion with the board of Biogen, and Biogen decided it looks promising, but we do not feel capable enough to continue with this whole thing. So we want to sell the, as he called it, the license of the whole trial to another party who feels more capable of handling this whole process, who can further pick it up and continue with it. So that's, let's say, the part I can share about the trial, and I would say speak to me after this meeting and I might be able to share a bit more insight in private. He did share with me another very interesting thing. He said he was busy with another research called the smooth zone. And what the smooth zone is that, and I'm going to read it on my phone. He says that especially in younger CHM patients, there are these islands in the peripheral vision which keep having very thick retina. And the moment the eye disease starts progressing more and more, these islands survive in the peripheral vision. And he was saying this is very interesting because in order to show that the treatment works after many, many years, it would be great if we could inject the clinical trial in these smooth zones in the peripheral vision, follow these patients for many, many, many years, and show that the rest of the eye is still deteriorating, but these smooth zones survive. And he told me, combining this information with what we have in the clinical trial, he was very confident we were able to sell it to another pharmaceutical who could continue with the clinical trial. He was very positive about it. And he said, both for phase 3 trial as for the smooth zone, he will publish something in the upcoming months. No specifics. He also didn't tell me any specifics. He told me in the upcoming months. So yeah, we will learn more about that. The last thing I wanted to share, and then I'll hand it over to the next presenter, is let me see, he told me something about his lessons learned, which I thought was interesting to share with you. He told me something about when he started the whole trial, the endpoints were set at the beginning of the trial. And he said, obviously you go in a whole process of all these trials and phases and you're 11 years down the line, but you still have those endpoints which you set at the beginning. And he said, looking back now in hindsight, he better should have switched the secondary endpoints for the primary endpoints, which we probably all agree with, which was a big lessons learned for him. He also told me something which is very interesting about that, especially in phase 3, more progressed CHM patients were included, versus in phase 1 and 2, where also some patients were included who already had some more eyesight, which was, according to him, part of the result why those older patients who already had less eyesight didn't reach the 3 lines in size increase lines which they could read, which in his opinion was a lessons learned. Next time include also younger patients so you actually can make the extra lines of improvement. And thirdly, the whole lessons learned about the doses, the big dose, the high dose and the low dose, was something that he will take onwards in the next phase. So what is the next step? I literally asked him, so what should we do as foundations now? How can we help you? He said, first of all, Biogen needs to sell off the license. So they need to sell the clinical trial, let's say, to another pharmaceutical who can pick it up. And the other thing is that he needs to publish his data on the smooth zone, and from there we can take it onwards. He did tell us to stay in short contact with each other, and that I could update you at least about what I just told you. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And then the next person we have is actually right behind him. So Aurélie Harp will be representing Choroideremia France.
So as a disclaimer, I have a partner in crime to help me present with Dr. Vicky Kalatsis. The only reason I am representing France Choroideremia is because I'm French, and my cousin, first cousin in France, she's a carrier, and her 4 sons have CHM. And my nephew, who is 29 years old, is secretary of the board. And when my son got diagnosed in December with CHM, I called them back to say, wow, we are in this together. And he invited me to the French France Choroideremia synopsium. And I told him my goal, because I have the luxury of being French and American, is how can we build bridges, and especially what I discovered, like the luck of being in the US and having a big community and huge access to science and researchers, and where sometimes in um, uh, smaller countries or whatever, you feel sometimes isolated from what's going on, even though France Choroideremia is, and that's why I'm so happy that Dr. Kalatsis is next to me, is very close to Montpellier and the ophthalmology center in Montpellier. I don't know a lot about the history, so if you want to know more, maybe you can ask Vicky. So what I would like to talk about is more very quickly. I'm going to be very brief. The synopsium, so it was in March, the annual meeting. So it was a shorter meeting. It was a one-day meeting, and kind of same like here, the researcher met in the morning to discuss the states of research, where they were having their questions. And then in the afternoon, there were a lot of conversation with Dr. Kalatsis, Professor Monnier, Professor Audio, and Professor Dan Chung from Sparing Vision. And what was discussed is, at one point, what was the state, of course, of research in the world, but also, so Sparing Vision, were coming to explain their process in the lab of developing a drug that I think they're developing now with RP, because RP has a lot of data, the progression is faster. And so thinking of what could be developed with CHM and how to maybe try this drug with CHM patient. And the one thing that could be very interesting to be seen is how Sparing Vision could use the organoid developed by Dr. Kalatsis to test the medicine. So that's kind of what the discussions are in. I cannot tell you exactly what's going to happen, because there are many questions to see if it's possible, if it's viable, if it's really a good idea. The good news is Dr. Kalatsis also has been funded by CRF US to continue her research. And just as a very quick reminder, I would say for me, the two things I really remember from your research is, number one, the organoid that you develop, and the fact that to be able to use human organoids to see the evolution of treatments, but also the question of the vessels, and how, well, like, to really understand what is going on in the protein, how come it doesn't work, and that you saw a correlation of in calcium, and I won't go in more details because that's all I understood, but I'm very excited about, for me, like, everything we're hearing today is like the 2.0 of research is going to be more and more specific, of understanding what's going on in the vessels, what's going on for this function, and that's where we are. Yes, and I think, like, again, my big message was, for me, the most important is how can we bring more and more collaboration, international collaboration. And I'm so happy that we had, like, the first insight from Dr. McLaren, because everybody's asking about it, but also to have everyone here. So that's it for the French update. I don't know if you have anything to say.
Just a little bit. So I really did a great job, so I won't add very much. I'll just say that, yes, at this annual meeting, we did the same. We got Rob McLaren to come by Visio, and we asked him lots of questions as well. And that's what I was saying yesterday. His answer is, well, his response was really just be patient until these results come out, and we'll know better what we're doing. And then, as Aurelie said about sparing vision, so it's the treatment I said yesterday that it's not specific, it can be for any disease, and it's really a factor to try to preserve the cones that are left. So they've done it for RP, and it's true. Many of you might know Daniel Chung. He's the one who was with Spark Therapeutics for the RP65 trial. And it's really him, I think, that would like to apply it to choroideremia. So, really, for a rare disease, you're less rare than other rare diseases. And so he thought it could be something interesting. So we're discussing this. Effectively, what's interesting is that we have the RPE and we have the retinal organoids from the patients, from quite a large number of patients. So we can try and see what can be done. So we're starting discussions now with sparing vision. So it's something for the future. We don't yet know if it'll be viable, so I don't want anyone pinning hopes on it, but at least we're trying to do something. And then, yes, as Aurelie said, I think right now the important thing is to take a step back and try and understand what's going on. And that's what our work is at the moment. So it may be less exciting because it's more fundamental, but we think it could give a lot of insight that would be more exciting in the future, if you like. There you go. And also, last thing, yes, and I'm very happy to have met Aurelie because it's really good to have this international collaboration. I think it's been difficult for France choroideremia because generally I find the French don't speak English as well as the Germans, and I think it's been a bit of a handicap. And having Aurelie as a go-between is really great, and I hope we can consolidate relations between the two foundations or associations now. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks. And then moving back to North America, we have Bob Hillier from Choroideremia Research Foundation of Canada. Straight back.
I'm Bob Hillier, leading from Michael. I was a hydrogeologist in my working career, but at about 47, had to leave that and move on to farming and a couple other things. But so life changes you for sure. In my earlier professional career, I always learned or found out that it was best to stay to the end of the meeting because sometimes that's when important things come out. So I think Martha used to learn that it's good to go and have a smoke with the guys outside because that's where important things happen. So anyway, I would like to tell you a little bit of a story. I've broken my remarks up into how did we begin as the CRFC, how we've gotten the money that we have raised, where the money has gone, how we've spent it, and where we are today. So my story begins at about the year just before 2000, and the listserv. Some of you here have the old Yahoo listserv, and I remember reading one of the posts, and it was some guy living in New Orleans talking about going on a kayak trip in the bayou of New Orleans. I thought, geez, that'd be a nice thing to paddle in. And then I don't know, a few months later, the same guy was in Cape Cod, and he talked about going whale watching. And I don't forget if he was in a canoe or not. I thought, geez, that'd be something really fun to do. So my 50th birthday was coming along, and Martha said we should go to Cape Cod, maybe link up with that guy. And so we did. Turned out it was Eric Hartman, and we ended up doing the whale watching, and we coincided with Corey and Karen and Louis Armstrong, as I recollect, because there was karaoke involved in that visit. So so that was around the year 2000, and thanks for laughing, by the way. Then I got involved in the CRF as an originating board member after meeting these crazy guys. And then in 2004, Martha and I attended the New Orleans, I think it was the second CRF conference, right? And at the very end of the conference, again, at the end of the meeting, there was a board meeting, and somebody said, we should have a sister organization in Canada. And there were Martha and myself and one other Canadian there, and he was really fast to step back, and so I became the president of the. I became the president of CRFC. Okay, so that was in 2004. By September of 2004, we'd gone home. I'd found a couple co-conspirators, and we'd formed the CRFC, and one of the original board members is here today, Dave Fergosh, and his co-conspirator, Annette. Amita. Sorry. Yep. I'm not good at this. So that's the end of how did we begin? Okay. So then, how did we get our money? Later that year, again, one of our original directors, Mike Kaiser Warenga, Mark, thank you. I'm in the zone here. Okay. Organized a marathon run in Kelowna, BC. We made $100,000. Never happened before. And including among those runners was Dr. McDonald, a great guy. And over the years, we've had a number of major fundraising. So I won't go point by point, but you've probably all met Sheldon Lewis, and he did a pool party that raised $40,000. So that was a highlight, I think, for us. There were various other marathon runs. Lately, the last couple of years, we've had a fundraiser that's a trivia night near the end of November, and our two crazy sons-in-law that's run it online. And it hasn't raised big money, but it's a nice fundraiser, and it's in partnership with a coffee roasting business that is run by one of our sons-in-laws. So that's good. So since the beginning, since 2011, we've raised about $420,000 Canadian, and prior to that, I'm pretty sure there was at least 200,000. So we're probably bouncing at around between $600,000 and $700,000 Canadian, which is only about $150,000 US. But we still think it's a nice number. So there's only seven of us on the board. Okay, so that's where the money comes from. So where did it go? So in those first years from 2004 to say 2012, we'd have to get a chunk, go for many years and grow a chunk of money, and then we would just send it to a researcher. And Dr. Siabra, in that first decade, was one of the recipients. So we also paid for the mouse model, we think, and Dr. McDonald was another recipient in that first decade. And then right around 2012, we went to France to some year. And soon after that, we learned that Dr. McLaren had done his first injection of the gene therapy. And I get filled up when I talk about this. We came back, and we learned that Dr. McDonald had put a proposal into the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And so Martha and I and another board member went to Toronto, and we advocated for that. And we got them to pay $400,000. We kicked in $125,000, and the government kicked in about $800,000 or $900,000. So Dr. McDonald got his gene therapy trial in Edmonton as a result of that, and some lobbying, I think, and with the Foundation Fighting Blindness trying to embarrass the government because they didn't want to fund vision research, I think, and she did the lobbying at that. But we kicked in the money, and some of the money, that I think $21,000 our money came from the CRF. So there was the beginnings of a cooperation at that time. Okay. So in recent years, what we've tried to do to avoid that feast and famine is we've tried to say, well, we can cost share with the CRF as long as the money goes directly to the researcher. We can't send money to the CRF or I'm sorry, but to dispense it because of our tax department, our equivalent of IRS, our CRA won't allow that, and it wouldn't survive audit. But we're very happy to, when we have money, to co-fund. And so I learned from Dr. Jess a couple days ago that we've done that 11 times. I'd kind of lost count, but we've done that 11 times. Probably 9 of those 11, we've said, well, our population is about 10% of the U.S., so we'll try to do 10%. On 2 occasions, I think we've probably been in the more 80% because one of our major donors likes the work of Dr. Fahim right now. I think I've got the name right, and in Michigan, University of Michigan, and and that leads me to where we are right now. That same donor has put up, the Brussels has committed $300,000 Canadian to the focus is to be on a treatment or a therapy. And so I always like to know, what is it not towards? It's like not towards developing a model, not towards figuring out what are the root causes. The goal is to get to, if gene therapy, I enjoy and I'm hopeful of the news shared with us just moments ago. But if that isn't the answer, to get to the next one, the next answer. And so that's 300,000, and the request for expressions of interest has been issued. There's been 7 proposals received, and we're just at the process where the SAB is looking at them. And I think that ends my story. I think I've got past, present, future, and I've covered the names I wanted to cover. Thank you very much.
And our final speaker in the international updates is Eric Hartman in the back of the room. And he does have some slides, but we'll be presenting from the back.
So, folks, as you can see, choroideremia knows no borders. This foundation, the CRF, was founded in 2000 as an international patient support group. Since we have been incorporated, we have had 9 different countries represented on our board. And we have, as you can go online, you'll see all of our research that we've funded. It's across the world. I'm really pleased that we have all the people online, and to those who are online watching a streaming, welcome. We hope that you got benefit from the Wordly program. We know it's not perfect, but if there is information that you could have gotten through the AI interpretation, we really hope that you benefited from that. The foundation has, for quite a number of years, done additional outreach. One of the things we have been very keyed on as we got closer to potential trials is we needed patients to get genetically tested. So we have worked both in the USA and North America. There's a North American group of genetic counselors. We've done presentations there. I gave a presentation with the UK's iGenetic groups, and we've been working with them. But about 2 years ago, the CRF became a candidate member of Retina International. Retina International was formed more than 3 decades ago as an international association of national retina groups. But as time has gone on, they too have realized that there are organizations like ours that have a global presence and deserve a seat at the table. So we joined them, and I serve as the CRF's representative. And 2.5 years ago, they also realized there was a real inequity in genetic testing, and they put together a global genetic testing task force, and I was a representative. There were 16 countries, 20 people on the task force. The first year, they had done a survey to understand the background, what it meant, the hurdles that individual patients had. The second year, they did a survey of physicians to understand their approach to genetic testing, how important they felt it was. And from that, we had a series of meetings this year, and it was a 3-phase attack. And on the screen, that's the cover page of their report that was just published. Each of you can access it. It's on the app. I had it loaded on there so you can read through it. We as a global community fully understand that from local to regional, national, and by country, there are inequities in being able to access genetic testing, which we now, with Retina International, believe the term should be genetic diagnosis. You get a clinical diagnosis, and then you get a genotype diagnosis. And we need patients to be able to do that. In order to do that, our patient communities, country by country, region by region, locales, need to promote that. And this report, which is about 18 pages long, has a lot of information in there. And for any of you that are interested in getting involved with advocacy for this, please get in touch with me. Read through the document. You will see there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. There's a real question for emerging economy countries in South America and Africa and other and Asia, where access to genetic testing is difficult. It's difficult here. When we started our free genetic program, it required blood to be drawn, and many of our members couldn't find somebody to draw the blood. There are now other avenues, but in order to make sure this becomes a standard of care, Retina International wanted to put together this, and you will see there are impact points there that become points that each of us can learn to speak to our doctors to say, I need to get genotyped. I need to know the genetic diagnosis, because it's not just gene therapy. There are mRNA therapies and other therapies that are going to require to know your exact mutation. And for everyone, the more we know, the bigger our population gets in being genotyped, the more strategic we, as funders of research, will know where to target our money and make sure it is the most productive. So anybody who would like to get more information about Retina International or be an advocate for the foundation, please talk to me. I've had amazing times with Michael's organization in Germany. I was good enough to present in Holland with Paul and his mom's organization there, Zizos, and of course with France Choroideremia. So if anybody is bilingual in whatever language and wants to help me out, because my French is un petit peu, otherwise known as it sucks. I really, I encourage you to come to me, and we, as together as a patient community, as a global patient community, will be able to get so much more done. So thank you.
Great. Well, I think we'll wrapping everything up. We're getting back
Kathy,
on track.
could I just say something real
Oh,
quick?
absolutely.
Dean back here at the booth.
Sure.
I can see the people on the internet and they say hello and ciao and we and all those other things. And they're very interested in connecting. So if you want to speak about that, but they are very pleased for what you've done.
Oh, fantastic. Well, anyone who is interested in collaborating and participating in our conversations, please email us directly, info@curechm.org. And we would be happy to have additional conversations and bring you further into the fold. And we are looking for additional volunteers internationally. We would love to welcome you. So the last part of the program is just some staff updates. What are we doing? Where are we going? What does the future look like? After this meeting, there've been so many great ideas, so many inspirational speakers, and we have great plans and a great vision and so many interested people in place. So I guess, Beth, if you could come in first and provide an update.